Streaming live. The leader in Internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
Welcome to Crime Prevention 101 with host Susan Bartlestone. We're so happy you've joined us this weekend. Over the next hour, you'll learn the tips, tricks, and vital information that'll help you keep yourself confident and safe. Now, here's the host of Crime Prevention 101, Susan Bartlestone.
Hello. Welcome to Crime Prevention 101. This is the personal safety radio show with the optimistic perspective on a sober subject. And I cannot tell you, it is such an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure for me to be here with you again this week. And I hope that you had a safe week since we were together last. Now, this is another very, very special show for me. About a month ago, Crime Prevention 101 hosted another radio show here, and that show is called the Rape Declaration Forum. And it's an extraordinary show, broadcast out of New York City on the WBAI radio station, and it was my first live show. Faithful listeners to my show know that normally the show is pre-recorded, but this was such a special occasion that I had to do it live, and it worked so beautifully. It was such an amazing show that I told them that I told the Rape Declaration Forums that we got to do another show. So here we are. We're going to do it again, and we're live again. And now for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, like I said, the Rape Declaration Forum is a live call-in radio show. And on this show, rape and crime survivors who are willing to share, help themselves, and help others heal by calling in and telling their stories on air. And it is a truly healing experience. If you're in the place where you can talk about what happened to you, it's just an amazing cathartic experience. And it helps everybody that's in the same place that you are. Now, each caller has free space to explain what happened to them and the lessons that they learned from the trauma and the abuse that happened. And just to give you an example, one of the recent interviews that the forum did was with a woman who had been raped in Iraq while she was there working for a subsidiary of the Halliburton Corporation. And she's now seeking justice from that company and from the State Department. These are really compelling and inspiring stories. And today you get a chance to add your voice, too, if you'd like to. Now, my guests today are the co-hosts of the Rape Declaration Forum, Rebecca Miles and Jay Grace. And we are inviting you to call in, as I said, if you care to. Now, let me introduce them. Rebecca is the creator, as I said, and not only the co-host, but she is the creator and the producer of the Rape Declaration Forum. She's had 5 years of media experience, and she's worked as everything from a reporter to a correspondent to an anchor to a broadcaster. She's worked for such stations as Pacifica Radio, Free Speech Radio News, Newsweek On Air, and even BBC World TV News. And in case you missed it last time, one of her hobbies is plumbing, and I just love that. And her co-host is Jay Grace. And 10 years ago, Jay was the victim of a brutal rape, and it took years of struggle for her to make the transition from seeing herself as a rape victim to survivor to thriver. And she's been the co-host with Rebecca for the past 4 years of the Rape Declaration Forum. And she also produces and hosts her own daily variety show called Be My Guest, and it's on NewYorkTalkRadio.net, and it's just a wonderful, entertaining, upbeat show, talking about everything. She's a published author with the Thank God I book series, which was on the Amazon top bestseller list December 2008. And she's told her story many, many places on the news and so forth. And I'm going to let Jay tell her story in her own words today. So Rebecca and Jay, welcome.
Thank you. In unison.
All right, now, Rebecca, let's start with you. For those that haven't heard this program before, tell me about the Rape Declaration Forum radio show and how it came about.
Well, this is Jay speaking. Well, Rebecca and I met about 4 years ago, and she interviewed me because her and someone we dearly respect came up with the concept of the Rape Declaration Forum, and they knew that I was a rape survivor. And after a little nudge and push, I decided to share my story, and we met, we did the actual interview, we recorded it, and then she invited me to go on the studio, and when they played it live so that I can be there and they can, if people called in, I could speak. And it was my first time on radio, and I was completely shocked, and I didn't know what to expect, but it was the most poignant moments of my healing process.
Well, Jay, as long as you're on the line with us first, can you talk a little bit about tell my listeners what it was that happened and how you came to the place that you are now, as you say, a thriver?
Well, it was about 7 years ago that I was raped, and I actually was, before then, I was a crime victims crisis counselor for many years, and I dealt specifically with victims of violent crimes such as incest, rape, sexual assault, domestic violence. And I decided to change and relocate my profession, so I went to California, and this is where it occurred. And I went to California in hopes of changing my career, and I was looking for a part-time job. I had a full-time job already as a teacher, and I went to a high-end restaurant to apply for a bartending position. And because of my background as being a crime victims counselor, I was very cautious, I thought. And I had a friend with me wait for me outside in the restaurant because this is the first time I was going to go and meet these people, the manager. And we went in there, and it was fine. Everything was safe. Spoke to the manager for a couple of hours, met some of the staff, and I felt very comfortable with the manager. And I even met his family, his wife, and a couple of his family friends. And after a couple of hours, we were talking, and he said, well, I'm offering you the job. All I need is for you to fill out some paperwork. So I said, great. And I told my friend, well, wait for me. I'll be out in a few minutes. And that was it. So I thought. And as I was going towards his office, which was completely far away from the actual part of the restaurant where people dine, he kept walking quite fast, and I was trying to catch up with him. So he kind of sprinted to his office, and when I opened the door, he was already waiting for me from behind. And that's where he proceeded to rape and sodomize me. This ordeal seemed like it was forever, yet time sort of kind of was suspended. I really can't tell you how much time passed when this occurred. I tried to fight back as much as I could, but he overpowered me. And during this situation, I felt what most people do feel, which is sort of like an out-of-body experience. I saw myself, and yet I couldn't do anything about it. I felt completely separated and isolated. It was a horrible experience. And after he was through, he cleaned up himself. I was laying down bleeding, and he kissed me on the cheek and said, thank you, and walked away. And as I was there bleeding and in shock and trying to figure out what happened, I just couldn't believe that this was happening. I got myself together, and I got to the dining room, and my friend was there, which that time she was completely upset because a lot of time had passed, and she thought that I just forgot about her. And as she was yelling at me, I sort of blurted out, I was raped. Obviously, she was completely freaked out, and the first thing, I didn't report it right there and then. I went to my home and called from there, and the police officers came and picked me up and took me to the hospital. I knew that I was the body of evidence, so I didn't take a shower, which, of course, every cell of my body, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to scrub them off me, but I didn't because it's so important.
I think having a crisis counselor background, you knew what to do.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's important.
And
that's
so
a
that
very
helped.
critical point, right?
Very important, for those who may not know. I mean, if you are sexually assaulted, you literally are the body of evidence. So I know how that feels. I know that the first thing you want to do is just wash away that person. So it's very difficult. And I literally was in the hospital for about 12 hours. They couldn't find a crisis rape nurse to come in and do the rape kit. So I was there for about 12 hours in the emergency room, and at that time the police officers and the investigators came in and asked me questions and over again, and which is routine. And my experience, thank God that I did have some experience with that from my work, that I knew that they were doing their job, and some of them can be quite insensitive. So I tried not to take it so personal, which is very hard when you're so traumatized and injured. And then it proceeded after the questioning and after the examination. It's when really things got really hard for me because I was left dealing with my feelings, and that's something that we all have problems with when we're traumatized. Even though I knew it wasn't my fault, I still dealt with guilt and shame, and I kept thinking I should have known better. What could I have done to prevent this? And that's something that most victims keep saying to themselves. Mm-hmm. So I did press charges, but for some strange reason, they were dropped, even though they had DNA evidence. At that time, I was just trying to survive and just trying to cope with me being a victim, which is something that I didn't like. I didn't like that term victim. And I just thought that if I could just move on and just work and do whatever I had to do, be normal, quote-unquote normal, that this would go away, which, of course, it didn't. I went through a deep depression. I went through many phases of guilt and blame and self-destructive behavior. I, at one point, tried to commit suicide. This, of course, happened throughout several years. Eventually, when I came back to New York City, the case was reopened, and he was caught. And, well, they knew where he was, but they didn't actually... At that time, they thought they didn't have enough evidence, but after they found the right people who were willing to fight for my case, they found out that they did have actually enough evidence to... That's
fantastic that you were able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask you to hold that thought right there? We're going to take our first break.
Sure.
When I come back, we'll pick up from there.
Okay.
We've got more good stuff on the way, so stay tuned.
News, opinion, your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartlestone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartlestone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
Hi, my name is Aaron, and I'm a survivor of mannequinism. Mannequinism is basically when you turn into a hard plastic shell. They say it's from not being politically active. For me, it started when I didn't register to vote. And then I stopped volunteering, and before I knew it, I wasn't doing anything. And that's when I found a small patch of plastic on my right shoulder.
Protect yourself from mannequinism. Log on to fightmannequinism.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Streaming live, the leader in Internet talk radio, voiceamerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone.
Hello again. Welcome back. And I'm talking with Rebecca Miles and Jay Grace, who are the co-hosts of the Rape Declaration Forum radio show in New York. And Jay was talking about what had happened to her. And I just want to, again, if you would like to call in and share your story, the call-in number is 866-472-5788. And make sure you stay tuned. We've got resources and organizations that can help you if you're a crime or trauma survivor. And I before I go back to Jay and we finish her story, I just want to, again, and I do say this every show, and Jay touched on it when she was talking about how she felt. And I'd like to say to you, each and every one of you, if you are a crime survivor of any of the crimes that we're talking about on the show today or any other crime at all, please, please, please understand that nothing that happened to you was your fault. Even if you think that you used bad judgment in a situation that left you vulnerable, it is still never an excuse for a crime or for violence. And it is so important, and I know Jay's going to reiterate this, it is so important that you call yourself a survivor and not a victim.
Absolutely.
And understand that with the proper professional help, you can put what happened into perspective and get on with your life. And thank you, Jay. And again, I'm just so overwhelmed at the courageousness that you have to talk like you are today. Let's pick it up from where we began. Jay had this rape had occurred in California. Mm-hmm. It had not gone to trial out there. You came back to New York, and then you found out that it was going to trial.
Right. Literally like 2 days before I moved back to New York City, they called me and said, he's arrested. We have enough evidence, and we are very confident that we can take him to trial. I, of course, was like completely dumbfounded because it had taken me about 2 years to come to terms that we weren't going to get him. So it was really shocking to me. But I said, fine. But I said, I'm moving back to New York City. And they said, well, that's okay. When the trial occurs, then we'll just fly you in or whatever we need to do. So that's what happened. There were so many emotions involved when I went back to New York City. My family did not know what occurred to me. I kept it away from them. So I had to literally tell them what had occurred, which, of course, was shocking to them. And I was in a deep, deep depression. That's one of the reasons that I actually decided to go back to New York City, because I needed the support and the comfort of my family. And so when I decided to go forward, because basically I was their star witness. Now, through this investigation, they did find out that he apparently was a serial killer, and he had raped many women all over the country. But I was the only one that had sufficient evidence, DNA evidence, and who actually did press charges. So in order for the actual case to go, I had to kind of proceed with it, or else it would just fall apart. So a lot of pressure there on my behalf, because I wasn't getting enough emotional support at that time. I didn't even have a therapist. I just come back from California. So I was such an emotional wreck. And so my experience with the court system was not a really good one, which is not uncommon. Even the people who were supposedly working for me, the DA, referred to me as her victim. which again is not something that I would want to be called and labeled as. They were just very sort of, which is their job, is can we win this case, and that's how they were going across with it. But I'm a human being with emotions, and I was apprehensive of seeing this man who raped me, and I hadn't seen him since the rape. So a lot of emotions were going there. I was terrified. And when I addressed those issues, basically they said, well, you're either on board or you're not. There was no compassion or empathy on their part, which was very, very difficult for me. So I went through it, but I think it was more devastating than the actual rape, if you can believe that.
Oh, I most definitely can, and I've often heard that going to trial is like the second rape.
Absolutely.
I've heard that many, many times. Can I ask you what happened? Did he get convicted?
He did get convicted. He got not enough in my book, but he got about 5 years. Yeah.
and lucky for that.
Exactly. For that. Isn't that something? Everybody's like, well, at least he got that. It's amazing that because most rapists get away with it. The majority do. So I am grateful for that.
Yes, it can be, and the penalties, if they actually do get convicted, can be shockingly little.
Yes, indeed.
So then you came back to New York.
Yeah, I was in New York. All this happened, like the trial, everything occurred while I was in New York City. I just flew when I needed to be flown there and testify, whatever I needed to do. And so. And
you began that long healing process again.
Yeah, so I started from scratch once the actual trial occurred, because then all those wounds were reopened, and I was left, after the case was taken care of, they left me there. And I basically, my family and I had to pick up the pieces, and that took a long time to sort of get back together through therapy, through being more spiritual, trying to find ways of healing holistically. I little by little started to pick up the pieces, and it goes back to the Rape Declaration Forum. I met someone who was really, really close to me, who helped me through this, listened to me, and sort of said, you have a voice, you have a story to tell, and you need to tell it, and you have no idea what you can do with that. And I intellectually knew that was true, but I didn't know how true it was until I actually did share my story here at the Rape Declaration Forum and realized how powerful it is. And the first moment I spoke and told my story and heard people share theirs for the first time, it was the first time I started healing.
Absolutely. And I understand that you were the first caller on the Rape Declaration Forum.
And the first interview. The first interview.
And now let's give the number. How can people get either to call in or to email you about calling in to the next Rape Declaration Forum show? And we're going to talk about that, because I'm going to be on there with these guys.
That's right.
Yes, you are.
We're definitely going to be talking about that. How can people get a hold of you if they want to share their story with you as well?
Yeah, this is Rebecca. There's a Yahoo email account, which is rapeforum@yahoo.com.
Okay.
And then the next show is February the 26th. It's a 2-hour show. Normally we have an hour, and it's a monthly show, but this month we get 2 hours from 9 till 11. And the studio number to call is 212-209-2900.
And, and I'm going to actually post that in the show notes on my DearSafetySolutions.com website, where I post all the show notes. I'm going to have the email. I'm going to have the phone number. And we're going to talk more in the show about what we're going to be doing there. That is on the 26th of February.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, we do have a caller, so let's take our first caller. Thank you, Jay, so much. And Tiffany, are you there with me?
Yes, I am.
Hello,
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi,
Tiffany.
how are you?
Welcome to the Rape Declaration Forum and Crime Prevention 101 show today. And you're speaking with me, and you're speaking with Rebecca and with Jay.
Okay.
Now, I know a little bit about your story, but I'm going to let you tell it in your own words what happened.
Okay. Ready?
Yes, go right ahead.
Mine's isn't a rape story. Mine's is one of domestic violence. But it goes hand in hand as far as the healing process.
Indeed.
And what she's speaking about, and when you hear someone else tell their story, you find the courage to tell yours. In June of 2005, I was stabbed 7 times as a result of domestic violence. And that victim mode, I remember that feeling, like somebody telling you you are the victim, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, these are the people who are supposed to be helping me and assisting me to get through this. But you feel more re-victimized. And trying to find those outlets where you find a place of peace, a sense of, okay, how do I get through this? What am I supposed to do? My situation was rather unique because it was my daughter's father, and originally he was facing an attempted homicide charge. And being in the mindset that I was in, I didn't want my daughter to be taken away from her father for a long time, or be away from her father for a long time. If he had to serve a prison term for what he did, he did what he did. I in no way ever felt responsible for his actions. But attempted homicide would have taken, a father away from a child for a long time. And I grew up without my father. And I remember when I went to Assistant District Attorney and I shared that with her, and she said to me, do you realize he could have killed you? And I'm like, yeah.
And Tiffany, that is a very very individual attitude.
Right.
That's not everybody's attitude.
Right. And finding the courage to stand in the midst of that. So now I do travel and I do speak out about that because, just like you said, it is individualized. And everybody's experience is different. But if in some way, somehow, we find the courage as survivors to tell our stories, we're bringing other people to a place of healing, just as was done with us.
Absolutely.
So, it's encouraging to hear and to be on the line and listen as she's speaking about what she went through, because as a survivor, I can identify with that. Although it's not rape, it's still that same victimization mode.
Absolutely.
Until you accept it, until you're able to deal with it, you finally come to a place of healing. Because I thought something was wrong with me for the longest time. Not that I made him do what he did, but I'm like, why are these people acting like this towards me?
It's almost impossible not to, in some way, feel it's your fault at first.
Right.
Now, Tiffany, we're coming up on the second break. I want you to hold on with me. We're going to come back because the rest of the story is very compelling, and you're not going to want to miss it either. So stay tuned.
News, opinion,
Can you hear me?
your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartlestone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartlestone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
What's it like?
What's it like?
It's lonely.
It's really lonely.
I miss my brother.
I miss my brother.
I'm surrounded by other people, but it's not the same.
I've got other people around me, but it's not the same.
It's pretty scary, but I don't let it rattle me.
It's pretty scary around here, but I don't let it rattle me.
You always have to watch your back.
There's no one to watch my back.
I spend my whole day worried who's out to get me.
I'm always wondering who's out to get me.
But I can take care of myself.
But I can take care of myself.
No matter what, I'll keep my head up.
No matter what, I'll keep my head up.
It's not like I have a choice.
It's not like I have a choice.
This'll all be over in 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days.
This will all be over in 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days.
Go to jail for a gun crime and your family serves a sentence with you. Something to think about before committing a gun crime. Gun crimes hit home. This message brought to you by Project Safe Neighborhoods and the Ad Council.
The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Rebecca Miles and Jay Grace from the Rape Declaration Forum show, based out of New York City. And we've got caller Tiffany Penn on the line, and we were just talking. Tiffany had been stabbed 7 times, almost killed by her partner, and he did get put away. He was sent to jail. Tiffany, how long did he actually spend in jail?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And this was her specific wish that he not do extensive time because she. Well, let me tell us why. Talk about why you felt that.
We have a daughter together, and like I said, I grew up without my father, and this relationship had no history of abuse. This was an aberration, not making it any lighter than it was, because it was a very tragic situation. So, I don't want anybody to get the misconception like, it wasn't tragic. It was tragic. But it was bigger than me. It was bigger than him.
So there had been no history of domestic violence or
we don't
abuse?
Have, no history at all.
Do you have a clear handle on what actually triggered what he did?
He does, and that's something that, because it was his actions, I don't answer that. I tend not to answer that question because what I found historically is when I do answer it, people tend to say, you're defending him. And I found that, it creates a bigger hassle than it's really worth.
Okay. But you are secure enough with your understanding to say that, this is where I'm coming from. This is what I only wanted him to do a small amount of time because I do feel comfortable with this.
Not even that particular charge. Like he was still charged with aggravated assault and recklessly endangering another person.
Okay.
Whatever time was attached to those charges, I was fine with.
Okay.
It was just that particular charge, that attempted homicide. That would have carried a lot of weight with it. And I couldn't fathom that.
Okay.
So, the whole time he took responsibility, and I was about him taking responsibility and being held accountable for his actions. But like I said, I knew that one would have taken him away from a little girl, and his presence wouldn't have been there. And I didn't want to feel responsible for that if I could play a part in that.
Okay. And, again, as we're saying, this is her individual, statement about this is her individual feeling. And I know you have stated that you felt you were spared for a reason. Talk about the reason.
The reason.
Came to you.
I think I'm at a place in my life where I feel as though, and like you said, this is my opinion and my perspective of it and how I came to a place of healing and am actually able to do what it is that I do now. I believe that everything in our lives happens for a reason. There was something that I needed to heal in my life, and it hadn't been healed. And that situation was meant to happen. You know, he and I stayed connected through the time that he served in prison. I visited every week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we had some really tough conversations in that visiting room. But because we were connected at a higher level, a spiritual level, it brought me to a place of healing. You know, it brought me to a place where I was able to accept it, where I was able to, you know, sit and talk to him about what he did, you know, and get certain answers. What I came to realize, me not having my own father in my life, it was very reflective of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here my daughter is, she has her dad in her life who, you know, he's an awesome father. That's, you know, I could never take that away from him. And me not having my own father. And it was like this was playing out before my eyes. And it brought back so much that I didn't have as a child. You know, so much unworthiness in me. Why wasn't my dad there? Where was my dad at? You know, why didn't my dad act like this with me the way her dad acts like, you know, with her? Why was I never daddy's little girl?
Okay.
And, you know, when it did happen, my father passed away while I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter. You know, I didn't know my dad. And I ended up speaking at his funeral. They called me and told me he passed away, and I ended up speaking at his funeral. Like,
so your overwhelming concern in this was really focusing on the family that you wanted for your daughter.
Yes.
And I know that you formed a kind of a ministry.
Yes.
Or a ministry.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. This is the way that you helped heal, and talk about your partner's place in this ministry.
Okay. It's called the Soul Survivors Foundation. And what I do with the Soul Survivors Foundation is I actually raise funds to support innovative programming for survivors of domestic violence. So what I'm looking at doing is having that place where, you know, women can say, you know what, yes, I was abused, and not be ashamed of the love that they still felt afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I have found is it's intriguing, you know, when abuse does happen and you've been in this long-term relationship, it has no history of abuse. I was faced with, like I said, how can you love someone who tried to kill you? Well, our relationship was more than just that day. Nobody could tell me how to stop loving him. But everybody said I should stop loving him. How can you love him?
And this is a hugely important point, Tiffany, and I want to make sure we get this point out. If you're counseling somebody, you must take into account that person's feelings.
Exactly.
There is no blanket approach. You've got to leave. You've got to stop. This is critically important for people to hear this.
Right. And with abuse, it's a loss of control. It's a big control issue. As a victim, you've lost control of making a decision in your life. You know, so here, you know, you go to an advocate or you go to a counselor, and it's, well, you need to not go back. Well, you need to, well, wait a minute. I don't understand you telling me what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Validate and acknowledge, you know, I do still love him. Where do we go from there? You know, if
how do we keep you safe?
Right, exactly, and that's the main thing. First and foremost, how do we keep you safe? Exactly. Then let's deal with these feelings, because maybe once we deal with those feelings, you could bring yourself to a place of healing, a place of understanding, a place of accepting it and being able to move on.
And I understand, Tiffany, that he is going to be helping you in this ministry.
He will eventually. He was just released from prison this week, and we haven't had any contact with one another. That was one of the stipulations of his release. He still has 2 years that he has to serve on parole. And one of the stipulations was that we don't have any contact with one another. So we haven't.
Okay. And for how long is this for all the rest of his parole?
Well, I contacted his parole officer because, again, this creates another issue because the entire time that he was in prison, I visited every week.
And now they're saying you can't visit.
Now they're saying I can't.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, the legal system is very interesting, isn't it?
Right. So now they're saying I can't. So, you know, I found out from his parole officer what I have to do is write a letter to the board. But it gets even better. He's not to have any third-party contact with me or my family, which includes our daughter.
And that was your main concern from the beginning.
That was my main concern.
It's an amazing turn of events.
Yes. He went up as soon as he was released. He comes out of prison after serving his 2.5 years, changes clothes, and goes to the school to see his kids. I get a call from the school because he's not on the emergency contact list. Well, his parole officer, he told his parole officer, when I talked to his parole officer, he had told his parole officer that the school contacted me. And his parole officer said, well, that was a form of third-party contact. And I'm like, wow. It's one of those situations, it's like you can't win for losing.
Mm-hmm.
So not saying that, he shouldn't be held accountable, did all that. But where do we come to a point as a society that we take these experiences and we begin to share them more to help someone else?
Well, this is what Soul Survivor is about, correct?
Yes.
And how do people get in touch with you if they want to?
My website is www.Tiffany, and Tiffany is spelled Tiffiny, PENN.com.
Okay, and the Soul Survivor also has a website?
The Soul Survivor Foundation information is actually under my website.
Oh, very good.
Yes, it's under my website. I'm in the process. I'm writing. It'll be released actually Crime Victims Week, May 2nd. My book is called Vital Signs, 7 Principles for Forgiveness at the Heart of the Matter. Because when we don't get to the core, to the heart of what's hurting us, our lives tend to flatline.
Absolutely.
So they tend to flatline. So I wrote the book and looked at 7 principles so that, we can look and say, well, wait a minute, maybe my life was flatlining. So how do you start that heartbeat again? How do you, get to the heart of issues that you've been dragging on in your life from childhood to adulthood? By being courageous and doing what you have to do and staying connected and coming to a place of healing.
Amen. Tiffany, thank you. Thank you so much. I want to stay in touch with you. I want to hear what happens.
Yes.
And I look forward to maybe hearing you on the Rape Declaration Forum.
Sure.
Thank you so much for calling.
Welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, too.
Bye-bye.
I understand we have another caller, Chris.
Hey there. Yes, this is Chris.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Chris. I wanted to get you on. We're coming up to the break, so let's start our talk, and then we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back real quick.
Sure.
Tell me what's on your mind, Chris.
Well, I really appreciate this show, and I'm just like the last woman who was on. I'm a victim of domestic violence, a domestic violence survivor. I had a bad breakup with a boyfriend. He refused to leave the home. It was my home, and in New York State, you can't just throw someone out. You have to go to housing court. But he started to threaten me, and I got an order of protection, and then he pushed his way in my house one time, and he didn't threaten me physically, but he said, well, I can't let you be in the house alone. So when he wanted to take a shower, I had to take a shower with him. And it was, I was thinking fast, just as you say, think fast, and he didn't touch me or anything.
That's right.
But I didn't know that was a crime also.
It's a good survival tactic, absolutely.
I didn't know that till afterward.
I hear the music telling us we're coming up for break. Hold on, we're going to come right back to you.
Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787.
That's it.
VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartlestone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartlestone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
Hey, Dad.
What?
I can't get the ketchup bottle open.
Here, let me try. Here you go.
Thanks.
You don't have to be a hero to be a hero. When you adopt a child from foster care, just being there makes all the difference. To learn more, call 1-888-200-4005. A public service announcement brought to you by Adopt U.S. Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Stimulating talk.
It gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 Internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone.
And welcome back. We're in the closing segment of the show. We're talking with Chris. Chris, I'm so sorry. We only have a couple of minutes. Just give me a quick rundown of we were talking about this domestic violence situation. Mm-hmm. You were being a prisoner in your home. What happened here? Let's pick it up from where we stopped.
Finally, I got him to get out of the house. He had broken the order of protection. I went to the police several times that he broke the order of protection. He was finally arrested. He got, this is in New York State, he got 90 days in jail.
Indeed.
And then he broke it again about 3 months later. Again, he got 90 days in jail. And a friend kind of joked with me, and I took it very seriously. Well, maybe if he hit you, he would have gotten more time. And
possibly.
It really
he might have gotten
very embarrassed, at everything that I had been through. And I didn't mention, you're really the first people, except for my therapist, that I mentioned exactly what happened. I was embarrassed at what happened. I was embarrassed that I didn't know. I'm educated. I have a master's degree. There's things that I feel that I should know, but I came to the realization that one person can't know everything, and we really need to ask for help.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and you can't take that burden on you that I should have known this, I should have known that. That's not the way it works, especially in domestic violence situations. So now, where are you now in the situation? What's happening now?
Gratefully, that was over. It was about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. The last time I heard from him, I did have an order of protection. It has since lapsed, and I have not heard from him since. I have grown in leaps and bounds since then. I am now I'm a life coach, actually, and one of the people that I help, some of the people that I help are people that have been through sexual abuse or other types of trauma, and they're kind of suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Who would know better, right? Just as we spoke of earlier. So, and I'm so grateful to help those women.
Chris, have you heard about something called the Family Justice Center?
I've heard of it. Is that in New York also?
It's all over the country. There happens to be one in Brooklyn and one in Queens, and they serve. You could go to either one. Also, and for my listeners, go to FamilyJusticeCenter.org if you're feeling if you're in the same situation and you'd like to get some advice about some of the options that you have. This is one of the best resources on the planet for domestic violence cases, and all the agencies you need to speak to are under one roof. So if you can't find it for some reason, Family Justice Center, because I think you need to clarify what the situation is, and if he comes back into your life again, exactly what you can do, and how maybe we can get some more time for him. if he violates that order of protection, because there are some things that can be done. If you can't get a hold of the Family Justice Center, either one of them, email me solutions@fightsafe.com, and I will give you the numbers. I also did. I did 3 previous shows on. I think I've even done more shows on domestic violence on my host page at voiceamerica.com. Scroll back down to the October shows. I did 3 shows on domestic violence. One of them with the creator of the Family Justice Center, and I'll give you a great idea if you go back into the archives and hear that show, exactly what services they offer and where the help that you might be able to get, because you're going to want to refer people to this if you're in the counseling field now. You're going to want to refer people there. It's an amazing show, and I did several other shows as well that I think will, in terms of getting, kind of furthering your education on what happened to you. But right now, at this point now, you feel that he's out of the picture, at least for how long has it been since you last had contact?
It's been almost 3 years, and this is another thing. After the second time he was arrested and in jail, I found out through the district attorney that he had a pattern of this, not only with a former girlfriend, but with his wife also. So I was number 3, so I keep thinking he moved on to number 4. And
Very
I just
likely
hear and pray for that woman, whomever she is.
All right. Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for calling in. Please check into the Family Justice Center just in case. You don't want to be left unprotected. And again, thank you so very much for calling in.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, Jay and Rebecca. So we're winding down now. Let's talk again. Tell people how they can tune in to the Rape Declaration Forum. And the next show is
Thursday, right? Yeah, Thursday, February the 26th. And this month we have a 2-hour slot, so from 9 till 11 p.m. And it's broadcast live on 99.5 FM in New York City, but also streams live through the web at www.wbai.org. And it's an interactive show. Susan, you're going to be on it.
I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be talking about self-defense.
That's right.
I'm going to be giving.
But also give the phone number for people to call.
Oh, yes.
So it's 212-209-2900. So they can call in and ask questions to Susan.
Yeah.
And Jay, how can people listen to your radio show, Be My Guest?
It's at NewYorkTalkRadio.net. That's www.nytalkradio.net. And it's daily live at 4 p.m.
And if they're interested in getting your book, which I know is going to be a fabulous book, how can they do that?
Go to my website, my official website, www.jaygrace.com, jgrace.com. It's Grace with a Y.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, all my wonderful callers. Tune in to the Rape Declaration Forum on the 26th. We're going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again next week. But in the meantime, I did 3 previous shows on non-traditional ways of healing from trauma that you may want to check out.
Oh, that's
back in 2008, right? September 20th, September 27th, and November 8th. Go back and listen to those shows for those of you that are looking for some ways that you might help your healing and further your healing along. I wanted to give out the Rape, Abuse, and Incest Network. That's RAINN, RAINN.org. For domestic violence information, it's ndvh.org. That's N like Nancy, D David, V Victor, H Harry.org. You're going to want to check in with them. They operate the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That is so important. Please, if you've got any comments or suggestions, if you want to hear any of my past shows, go to my voiceamericawebsite.com. They are all archived there. And I'm going to post a link to that show on my DearSafetySolutions.com website. You got safety tips on that webpage. So I want you to make sure you get there and check it out. Email me if you want to, solutions@fightsafe.com. And next week I'm gonna have a really special show. I'm going to be talking with Linda Fairstein, who is the groundbreaking sex crimes unit, head of the sex crime unit in New York City and best-selling author. And it's going to be live. We're going to take questions. It'd be a crime to miss it. So you know what? Stay tuned and stay safe.
We hope you got some useful information and inspiration this week on Crime Prevention 101. Susan Bartlestone invites you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time here on Voice America. Have a great weekend and a safe weekend.